Well, first of all, thank you for agreeing to do this interview with us.
No problem.
Today is Wednesday, September 24th, 2014. And can we start by, can you tell us your full name, please?
Jason Estremera.
Okay. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Cleveland, but I grew up in Chicago.
And what is your heritage?
I guess half Puerto Rican and half white, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you move to Ohio?
You mean to Chicago or?
To Ohio.
To Ohio, just 4 years ago.
Oh, just 4 years ago. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you grew up in Chicago then?
Yes.
What was your childhood like?
Just in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was cool. Growing up in Chicago was fantastic because it's a very culturally rich area.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up in a very Puerto Rican area of the city, Humboldt Park. So that was pretty great. It was cool, it was fun. I was exposed to a lot of different cultures. Yeah, exciting would be the one word in a nutshell, I guess.
And then you moved or work also in a Puerto Rican neighborhood here in Ohio.
Yes.
What brought you to Ohio?
Family, ultimately. So I was born in Cleveland and I moved to Chicago when I was 2 with my father and my family. My father was working for Motorola and their headquarters are out in Schaumburg. So when they decided to move back, I said, well, why would I leave the greatest city in the world to go to Cleveland, of which I knew nothing about? And so I stayed in Chicago and did a lot of international travel. And then 4 years ago, an opportunity came up when I was working for J.P. Morgan at the time to manage some branches in the Cleveland market. So I said, well, if that's not a sign from above, then I don't know what is. And so that's what brought me here ultimately.
Okay. What was your first impression of Ohio?
I hated it. This is very put it bluntly. But also because I just left where I grew up my entire life, well, for a good chunk of it at least. So I hated it. It just didn't have that go that Chicago has. Needless to say, after I want to say about 6 to 7 months, I just stopped being a sourpuss because it's just as busy here, and I think that my life is 10 times crazier and busier here than it ever was in Chicago, and for that, I think I'm very thankful that I'm here now.
Mm-hmm. What were those first memories that you have of first arriving here?
That it was dead, that there was nothing to do. At the time, I had just bought a place in Ohio City, so I didn't really know anything about Ohio City at the time. And at first, seemingly, it seemed like a very, okay, there's some stuff to do, but where's all the people at? Where's the hustle and bustle? Where's the train sounds? Where's all this? And there was none of that. And I was so used to that growing up. Also, it was a very whitewashed neighborhood, so I'm like, where is the cultural diversity that I'm used to in there? So that was my first shock, was, wow, I'm in like honky-tonk land, and it's dead, nothing to do. That was my first impression, honestly.
You said your life is almost as busy as it was, or busier than in Chicago. What, in this 4 years, what has made you feel maybe a more part of this community?
Well, I think that Cleveland is really great for the connections that you can make, and it's kind of a very small community, big city kind of feel, where you have the chance to meet with very important individuals and very easily. And so when I was with J.P. Morgan Chase, I was introduced to the Nishimba, the Young Latino Network, the Hispanic Roundtable, all these organizations. And being that the Hispanic community was small but growing, and they're looking for more members and getting involved, and then it was very easy for me to get kind of wrapped up and now I'm the president for the Young Latino Network and on a board for the Metro Health Foundation, and I was doing my master's at the time, so I was meeting individuals from that. So it was just a matter of getting out. Literally just walk out your front door and you're gonna bump into someone that's like, hey, who are you? What do you do? What do you know? What do you want to do? Here you go, and they'll take you along with them for a ride. So yeah.
Right. You have family here in Ohio.
Yes.
Okay. And what are some of the specifically Puerto Rican traditions that your family has tried to keep alive, or you feel that has been passed to you when you were growing up, or even here?
Well, that's funny because my immediate family, none. Even despite growing up in Chicago in the area, we never maintained any traditions of like the Three Kings, or my mom never cooked Puerto Rican food, so it was always you go out for it, or you're just as excited to come to Cleveland so you can go to grandma's house and get, the real good stuff. So now that I'm back and I am with my family, my extended family, I would have to say specifically to being Puerto Rican, just as soon as you go over anyone's house, the pan hits the stove and you're eating. But I don't participate in any sort of traditional Puerto Rican like activities or anything. So I'm bad for that.
What you mentioned, you're the president of the Young Latino Network?
Sure, yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
It's great. So our mission is civic engagement and leadership development. So we exist to kind of bridge the gap between these open opportunities and connecting within the Hispanic community. So it's as the workforce demographics are changing, right? The aging workforce is getting ready to retire. Companies are coming to me like, whoa, a third of our workforce is getting ready to go. But we need to be more inclusive, and our company is to reflect the customers and the clients that we serve. How do we get your people in here? So it's a matter of getting our members prepped, workshops, leadership development opportunities, getting involved in the community, building up the resume, building up their connections, and then being able to help move them to the next step of their life, be it personally or professionally. So I'm tasked with kind of building relationships with organizations in the city, finding ways to support the members on my board to make sure they're getting something out of having these connections themselves. So when we're done with our 2-year term, what is the next step for you as well? Fundraising opportunities, we have our own scholarship fund. So there's great programs like Cleveland Bridge Builders, Holiday, but many of those programs come with a hefty price tag. So how do I make sure to someone in my community who perhaps it was a struggle just getting to where they are today, but now they're tasked with, well, I want to do this development series, but it's thousands of dollars. Well, we are able to actually give funds from our own community to make sure they are at the table with other individuals, so that the higher up the ladder you go, we can help prevent it from being so white when you get up there.
Can you share some of the success stories that you've had in your involvement with this network?
Well, the biggest would be our Noche de Guayabera annual fundraiser. So we did phenomenally in that respect. Raised a lot of money, did it more efficiently than I think it was done in the past. And so we were able to raise a ton of funds. And so this year we'll be able to provide scholarships to more. So last year we were able to provide a $1,000 scholarship to a member to go to the Cleveland Bridge Builders program. Then we were also able to provide a scholarship for an Esperanza child. Esperanza is the building upstairs, who is physically handicapped. And so that was a financial burden on the family alone, but then he is rather a very intelligent child and was able to get into college, but he needed some funds, your scholarship. So we were able to give a scholarship fund for that amount. our food drives, our toy drives. Those have come out very successful. Voting is a big issue for us, so we're not getting our population at the table. So we've been successful in being able to partner with different agencies in the city, and we actually have an event coming up shortly to raise awareness, get people motivated about issues that are crucial to our community, but letting them know that if you don't show up, it'll never change, you know. And so those have been some successes.
What has been some of the, I know it's been just short 4 years, but what has been one of the most memorable times of being here?
Mm-hmm.
And also, what has been one of the most difficult times of being here?
The most memorable would be the first year I was here, Ingenuity Festival. I discovered that, and I remember. Are you familiar with Ingenuity Festival?
No.
It's one of its kind. It's like technology, art, a performance kind of big 3-day event here in Cleveland. They're mixing technology, lasers and video games and big installation pieces, and it used to be underneath the Detroit Avenue Bridge and the old viaduct. And it was really cool. I mean, the first year I came in there, you're entering in through this old tunnelway, and you're underneath this bridge that's over water, and you've got there's these grates that kind of cover where you're walking, but you look down and it's just water. And you have these art performances, and you move through a hallway, and the sound of your body moving changes the light spectrums. And it was really awesome. They turned the bridge into a waterfall, so they had a guy come in, and the whole bridge was this massive waterfall. So it was just the coolest thing, and I was just like, wow. You know, like, whoa, holy moly, this is Cleveland? So I think that was a big eye-opener to the potential that I wasn't seeing, because I was just being a sourpuss about being here. And I think it was that moment when I discovered some of the things that are happening, that I left all that behind me, all the negative vibes. The most difficult part about being in Cleveland, I guess it would only just be the fact that all my friends live back in Chicago, and essentially they have become my family. So having grown up there my entire life, I would just come to Cleveland maybe 2 times a year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. But when I stayed in Chicago on my own and my immediate family moved back, I didn't even come back. Maybe once every 2 years, because I would be overseas traveling, Spain, Paris, and I would just visit friends over there. So when I tore myself away from my essential family in Chicago to come here, the hardest part was, yes, they're my family, but they were still strangers to me. And meeting some of my second cousins, third cousins, even some immediate cousins for the first time, and trying to develop a relationship, especially the ones on the Puerto Rican side, because our last name is so well known. Every time I would go somewhere and they would say, "Do you know this Estremera, that Estremera?" And I'm like, no, I really, really don't. And so building those relationships and trying to become part of the family, I think, was probably the hardest part of being here.
You mentioned finding things that made you see Cleveland in a different way, and you mentioned something about community. What message or advice would you give to those newcomers? It could be Latinos or not Latinos, immigrants. What would you say to them about this community?
I would tell them that there's never any need to worry about becoming anything you want it to be, because being a complete outsider and having moved here myself, it was so easy to make a connection, but all I had to do was just step outside of my own personal bubble, right? Things I wasn't comfortable doing, being in front of a crowd, talking in front of a camera, putting yourself out there. But the second you do, the opportunities are endless, and I've seen that. Just people who come here, and for business assistance, you know, if I say here's this person, you should go talk to them, and they do it, well, then they've expanded their network. And I think that for people who are coming here as an immigrant or anybody for the first time, there is something for everybody. It's very easy to get connected, and whatever it is that your personal path is, right, or professional path that you want to accomplish, it will happen. You just have to take that first step and just and look for it. You know, there's tons of organization, young professional organizations, boards, places that want newcomers to be on it, so they can bring some sort of freshness to the city, so that it does reflect the changing demographics of Cleveland itself.
Since you've had this experience of living in a place like Chicago, which is very diverse, and now living here in sort of the epicenter of the Latino community in Cleveland, can you provide some of those insights? Like, what do you see? I don't know, some of the differences in these two communities, and in the uniqueness of each one.
So you want repeat that question one more time? I'm sorry.
So maybe compare your experience growing up in the primarily Latino community in Chicago, or with access to the Latino community, and in the Latino community in Cleveland. Like, how are these two populations alike or different or unique?
Okay, I think that in terms of the Hispanic community at large in Chicago, you have a much larger portion of the population that are Mexican. Mm-hmm. Cleveland, it's very Puerto Rican. Even Dominican is a much larger population than it was in Chicago. And so I guess that kind of the difference, I want to say. I wasn't as involved as I was in the community in Chicago as I am now. So I don't know, you know, every community has like it can be very fragmented, right? So I don't know from like the inside perspective, but I would say that there was a better representation, maybe, and probably not like that word later, but of the various cultures there, because you knew this area, you can go get Mexican stuff, Mexican food, and this was your Puerto Rican neighborhood, and if you wanted something from Uruguay or whatever, you would go over here, and you had all those in your little bodegas, and it was so, you know, you could see that. And here it's a little sparse. I mean, you have your pocket right here on West 25th and Clark, but it's not as concentrated where like it's, you know, I think that in Chicago they were able to find whatever magical equation it was, so they could work like this to really bring up the neighborhood and promote themselves. I think in Cleveland they're still trying to figure out what that is, how do we do it, and kind of move past some bad blood that has prevented anything from happening here, where, you know, you have a Slavic village, you have a Little Italy, of all that's kind of been branded, and they were able to get together and move that. Here I feel like that's still an issue, and that is preventing some progress from happening. Where in Chicago, I think that they already had that taken care of. They figured it out, they worked on it, and now it's there. So I think, so I guess
that's room for growth here.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe this question is, I don't know, not there yet, but what does Ohio mean to you?
What does Ohio mean to me? I think ultimately, just on my journey, Ohio was meant to me change. Not only was it a change of my surroundings physically, but it was a change in the way I was living my life myself. And I think that because there is that room to grow, and me coming from a city like Chicago, I've been able to come here and actually make a difference. And you don't have to fight through a crowd of people to get involved in something. And so it offers change for myself, but also change for the community, because I know that having that experience or that knowledge of maybe some things in the past that haven't been able to die off, it will shortly, but I know that I'm part of the new people that are bringing everything into perspective, and actually representing today's young Latino. And I think that as Ohio itself is learning to change and become more progressive in its ways, I think that just in general, because I was surprised when I thought of what Ohio is and the people that lived here, and then I came here, and you get a little bit of what I thought it was going to be, but everyone's working so hard to change that. And so in general, in a nutshell, whatever the case is, I think Ohio means change to me.
Would you consider yourself more in touch with your culture here than in Chicago?
Yes, I think that I interacted with the Hispanic part of myself in Chicago, because I would just go places that were there. I would go to art shows or clubs and things like that, and then you just kind of participated in it. But here, I'm actually woven into kind of the fabric of the community, and I'm making decisions, and I'm worried about where we're going to be next, and how do we promote how do we promote the members of the community. So I feel like I'm definitely more in touch here in that respect. Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to add to this interview that I haven't asked?
I don't think so, no.
Well, thank you so much for this time in this interview.
Thank you.
Thanks.